Hello, very good morning, good evening to everyone who is watching. And I am very excited to have a very special guest joining me today on our podcast. Joining me is Professor Dennis Hanno. Welcome, Professor Hanno. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's great to be here with you, Devesh. Thanks for inviting me.
Fantastic. So, Professor Hanno is a higher education leader, educator, and a social entrepreneur. And presently, he is in New York and teaches at the Gabelli School of Business at Fordham. He has filled numerous senior leadership roles at institutions of higher education, including a more than 7 year term as the president of Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts, which was the first college we partnered with under the Next Genius Scholarship Program, and which is when I had the privilege of working with Professor Hanno for the first time. While at Wheaton, Professor Hanno sharpened the college's focus on creating positive change through liberal arts. He led the college to establish a comprehensive set of programs and to help students build skills for social innovation and put their ideas into action. He's been a he's been a passionate advocate for engaging students in experiential learning, both inside and outside of the classroom. And in recognition of these efforts and his personal commitment to providing students with meaningful learning opportunities, he earned national recognition with the 2021 William N. Burke Presidential Award for Excellence in Experiential Education, given by the National Society for Experiential Education. Professor Hanno is also the founder of and CEO of Idea for Africa, which educates, mentors, and incubates young entrepreneurs, strengthening society in several African countries. And he serves on the board of Globally Responsible Leadership Initiative and the Global School Business Network. And he is the commissioner of the New England Commission of Higher Education. He is the co-chair of the board of directors of Loop Academy in Liberia and serves on the education committee of Kyoto International Academy in Burundi, which is where we had a bunch of students working with us under the Next Genius Scholarship Program. He has served as a dean at Babson and before that, associate dean for undergraduate matters in the School of Management at UMass Amherst. And he has a degree in business from Notre Dame, holds a master's from the Western New England University, and a PhD from UMass Amherst. Wow, fantastic. So many things you're doing, Professor. It's such a pleasure really to have you with us today.
You've taken too much time rattling all that off. In the end, you know what, I would summarize it by saying I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work with a lot of people and to try to make an impact in other people's lives, and that's my job.
Fantastic. And let's start off by talking about your experiences. What drew you to teaching business, entrepreneurship, and now at Fordham, leading people in organization? How did your experiences shape the way you approach this subject today? Yeah.
Yes. Well, not to even go deeper into my background, but just I think one thing served as the launch pad for this is that when I graduated from college with my first degree, I was an accountant. I became a certified public accountant. And what a CPA does is works with people to help them understand things, obviously in a financial or quantitative way. And I quickly discovered that what I really liked doing was helping people to get a better understanding of everyday things. Financial things are everyday things. And I said to myself, how can I take that even to another level? That coupled with the power of education in my own life. My dad never graduated from high school. And I didn't have a lot of educational opportunities available to me as a younger person. And I saw what I was able to do once I had those opportunities. That early in my professional life, I decided I wanted to become an educator so that I could help other people take advantage of those same things that were so important in my life. So all of my professional career in higher education has been driven by that focus on helping people to understand things and helping them to see what education can do to open doors for them.
I mean, what a very simple way of putting that you
Mm.
help people understand things. So that's wonderful, Professor Hanno. And um, now we work with a lot of 17-year-olds, right? Uh, so what does leadership really look like for these 17-year-olds beyond being a head boy or the captain of a sports team, let's say?
I think one of the challenges of with the word leadership and even talking about leadership is sometimes people do equate it with titles like head boy or team captain or college president. But I actually think uh, the titles are somewhat irrelevant. Titles are like external recognition. They really don't tell you much about what the role is or what you're doing. So for a 17-year-old, I think if they get in the mindset of thinking of leadership as growth and really challenging yourself to think about how to do things differently every single day, how to take on more responsibility every single day, like what can I do to grow personally and to help my community grow. And the other thing about leadership, I would say, is like even being in one of those roles you mentioned, it's a lost opportunity if you're not using the role, that opportunity that's been handed to you to improve your network, to make connections with other people. So it's not about, in my mind, telling people what to do, but figuring out how together we can create a positive impact, how we can create a difference in people's lives. And then the last thing I would say is like one of the things about leaders as well is that sometimes there's this perception of like, I'm the leader, I'm the boss. I make the decisions. I am the one who guides what we're going to do. But I would argue that as a leader, you have a great opportunity to seek out mentors because there's always somebody out there who knows more than you on a particular topic. There's always somebody out there who can help you shape your own life. And if you think having that title means that that it's up that it's now not something that you have to focus on, building your network and seeking those mentors, you're missing a golden opportunity. In my life, everything I've been able to achieve has been through having a strong network, but most importantly, within that network, mentors, mentors that I gained even when I was in those leadership roles, mentors who helped me to be better leaders. So to me, that's what leadership is about. And as a young person, seeking every opportunity you can to put yourself in those positions is the best way to practice being a leader and the best way to take advantage of that opportunity that's been given to you.
Wow, fantastic. I never thought it that way. And I mean, you spoke about how your network is important, and when you're a leader, it's an opportunity to um, use your network in an interesting way to bring about a positive change in the society. And leadership is
Mhm.
not about that title. Yes. What are some of the other mistakes that you see young people do when working in teams at schools or at college?
So other mistakes, well, uh, not keeping the possibilities open, not really thinking about um, how I can stray from what I'm comfortable with, how I can stray from the things that I normally do. And again, I think that's what leadership offers you that opportunity to maybe look at things in a different way, to have insights that you wouldn't have if you were just sitting back and letting everybody else do everything. So I think um, that what a young person should be doing is thinking about experimenting, and leadership offers opportunities to do that. Thinking about applying, you led off by talking about my focus on experiential learning. There's no better way to be able to apply what you're learning by being in a leadership role and doing something with that learning. And then lastly, I think seizing the opportunity to create, and leadership provides you with a golden opportunity to try to do things differently, to try to get people interested in changing their views and really looking at how the community, how the organization can actually approach things differently. So, I think um, leadership, sometimes people look at leadership as an end, when I think it's actually a means to be able to do all of those things, to experiment, to apply, and to create. Those are what I think young people should be focused on. And sometimes I think they miss the opportunity to do that because they think, oh, I've made it. I am head boy.
Yes, absolutely. I think, and I know somewhere I was reading that some of those, I mean, not a very nice thing to say, but some of those students peak at the high school where they say, okay, now I'm a head boy, and I mean, I am a superstar, and then they stop experimenting, and they stop trying new things, and I think
So,
that's
so
not a place to be.
yeah, and I'm sure you see this a lot, but certainly when I work with students, and even if you look at a student's resume or in today's world, the LinkedIn profile, you see those leadership things listed there. And when I meet somebody and I, say, well, that's great that you are in that position, but what do you do in that position? Um, and that really forces the student, the person, to really think beyond just the title. And what are they most proud of that leadership position has given them an opportunity to do? And that gets back to my point. It's not an end. It's a means to being able to do all of these other things. And that's what I really try to encourage young people to do is, don't just strive to be in that leadership position, strive to have the opportunity to experiment, to apply, and to create.
Yeah. And I think that's where I come to my next question too, which is about what can students practice leading people even before they enter the workplace. What are some of the things that you have seen students do in an academic setting, maybe at a high school or maybe at at the university level, at Wheaton or at Fordham, before they actually enter into the workforce?
Yep. So, having worked with too many students to count, I guess I would say thousands, certainly maybe hundreds of thousands at this point. What I look for is, again, not the title, but how I look for the person. I look to see, what they're doing with their time, with their life, and leadership gives you an opportunity to do some different things. But what I really like to challenge students to do is to show those qualities that help make you a leader, get you into that position, to show how you can live those qualities every single day. So oftentimes, like I'm surprised in a classroom environment when having taught so many students that somebody might be a leader, a designated leader, but they don't show that in the classroom. I think the practice of leadership is much more important than the attainment of leadership. So figure out as a student, I would say to someone, if you're the leader, you ought to be showing that like in classroom, that hand ought to be going up. You ought to be coming to me and having conversations with me and with others. So really do something that you're living those leadership principles every single day. One of the most important things about a leadership principle is giving other people an example to model themselves after. So, um, follow the way, basically, follow the way of the leader. So if you're going to strive to be a leader, you have to exhibit the qualities that make you a leader, that have other people look at you with respect in everything that you do, not just in the particular role that you're in. So for me, for college students and high school students, even more so probably, is being a leader in the classroom, being actively engaged, being that person that is talking to the teacher, the professor, talking to other students, seeking out extra help, not just being passive. Leaders are not passive. And then, I think one of the things about high school and college environments is there's just so many opportunities that are created to be able to put leadership into practice, not just the classroom, but there's so many clubs and organizations. Typically, even if it's a boarding school, if if you're in residence at a college, um, you don't just go back to your room at night and take that leadership hat off. You have an opportunity in like 24/7 basically to model the way, to show other people what it means to be a leader. So I mean, to me, that's the biggest mistake or one of the biggest surprises that I see is that people have been recognized as leaders, but they don't always practice that in the many spaces where it can have an impact on their life and on the lives of others.
So, thanks for sharing that about how it's important to be actively engaged. And there are so many opportunities at the college, at the university to actually practice leadership. Now, when does that, is there a point where you can say that, okay, no, you're overdoing that? I mean, can we think it in those terms that you're overdoing your leadership? I mean, that's an interesting question, but I don't know uh, if if we should think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think the in a way you asked that question, also even highlights for me another important aspect of leadership. And I alluded to this before. Leadership is not always about being the boss. Leadership is about figuring out a way to work together with people. You can't be a leader if you don't have followers. And so that means it's a very human experience. It's working with other people. So what you have to be able to do is know when to turn on, certain
Mm,
aspects of being a leader. When do you take control, for example? Or
yeah.
when do you sit back and let others take control? And to me, that's an important dimension of leadership as well, is knowing the situation and knowing the other people that you're working with. And certainly, as a leader in organizations, I've made mistakes around that. I've tried to tell people what to do when probably I should have listened to what they wanted to do and then
Yeah.
help them achieve that. So, and those are skills that you can practice, again, back to like clubs and organizations, back to the living situation in colleges and universities and the classroom. In fact, even in a classroom, professors always like students who raise their hands, but professors always get annoyed by the student who's raising their hand every single time. So what you've got to do as a leader is be critical of yourself. Like, am I doing too much? Am I being too controlling? But also really attuned to what's going on in the community. Like, how are people reacting to me? And that's not to say that you should be so attuned that you're paralyzed by it, that you just wait for affirmation. No, but what it means to me is that you recognize that leadership is about this collective of working together, about figuring out a way as a community to move forward. And that's the role of the leader, is to figure out what style is going to work best in what situation. So it's both, I think leadership is a factor of who you are as a person, who it is you're leading, and then the environment that you're in. And so you have to be attuned to all three of those: yourself, the other people around you, and then that environment, that situation that you're in.
So you worked a lot in experiential learning. Uh, in simple terms, what does experiential learning mean for high school students or parents who are trying to understand college education?
Yeah. So, I think I can link it back to what I just summarized there about knowing yourself, knowing who you're working with, and knowing the situation. So, how do you improve on all those things? You put yourself in different situations with different people. Think about it. If we all just sat in our room, and even if we were surrounded by other people, if those were the same people every day, that's not really going to teach you very much. And so, and I, thought back to my own formative years, and the thing that really made a difference for me was having that opportunity to see new things, to meet new people, to put myself in different situations. So it made me a very firm advocate, a very strong advocate of experiential learning, not taking what the like book learning is important. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you don't need to learn concepts or to think about theories or study what's happened in the past. All of that is important, but it's not going to really have that big of an impact if you don't apply it. And to really, if our lives and certainly in today's world, things change so rapidly that if you don't have experiential learning, if you don't put yourself in these situations where you're finding out more about yourself, the people around you, and the environment that you're in, then you're going to get pretty stagnant, and you're not going to have much growth or impact on those around you as well. So for me, the reason why I've always been such a huge advocate of experiential learning and thinking about different ways to get students involved is it's all about that opportunity to learn more. So you got to put yourself in these different situations. You won't be able to apply what you learn if you don't have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think uh, going out of your comfort zone as much as you can, as many times as you can, probably, I think could be one of the ways uh,
Yeah.
to look at it is like putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, and to that end, one of the things that this award you mentioned for experiential learning, yes, it's partly due to the programs I've helped create, but it's also the fact that and I think you're aware of this, and you mentioned that some of the African countries I worked in, I've led it's close to 60 groups now to various places around the world, including doing work right there in India with you, with high schools, with bringing college students to work with high school students. And I've had students work in so many different environments that they never imagined they would ever see or be a part of. And I don't take students as tourists. I take students as people who are going to work on projects that are going to have an impact. And yesterday, even I had to give a talk about some of this work, and people are always like, "Oh, does it have an impact on the people you work with?" And I'm like, "It has a bigger impact on the people doing the work." Because they learn more about themselves, they learn more about other people, and they learn more about the different environments that are out there. So uh, seek those opportunities. You've got to create them, or you've got to actually actively seek them out.
Absolutely. I still remember when you were here in Mumbai for the Geo Vichar Innovation Boot Camp. It was so much fun, and the energy of that room where there were about 30 students, 30 high school students, and they're talking about entrepreneurship and pitching a business and all of those things. It was tremendous. So,
And and every one of the Wheaton students at that time who came with me would
mm,
probably point to that as one of the most transformative experiences of their life. So.
yeah. Wow. Yes, yes. Yeah. So, about 17-year-olds, once again, they feel the pressure of choosing the right major and the right career early on. But from your experience, how should students really start thinking about, choosing
Yeah.
what to study?
Yeah. So that's a very real thing, in that, we're all in a hurry, and we see a goal that we might have in mind, and we want to figure out a way to get to it as quickly as we possibly can. And we think there's a path. That's human nature, is to seek that path. So, I've, as you mentioned at the beginning, I've worked at all different kinds of colleges and universities, from big universities to Wheaton as a small liberal arts college. So I'm not going to start off by saying that there is a perfect path, or there is one way to try to, narrow in on what you do and how you do it, basically. But I'll just put a little caution in there, and that caution is that, well, I'd be a good example. Accounting is a very specific, a very focused thing. So when I was in college, I studied accounting, accounting, accounting. But I had the pleasure of going to a university that made me expose myself to a lot of different things, in the liberal arts, in other areas of business, in the professional world. And those other things ended up being the thing that had the most impact on my life. Accounting certainly was, and I was good at. I had a good understanding of it. I could apply it in an experiential sense. But then when I got, thinking about what was next in my life, the ability to, even think about what happened in history and to think about sociology and, the way we think about the world around us and psychology, the way people think, all of those um, pieces of knowledge I picked up along the way became so instrumental into helping me to expand. One of the challenges I think that's even more present in today's world is the more you narrow in, the greater risk you're going to have that things are going to change, that what you hoped to do is going to be pulled right out from underneath you. Take computer science. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, computer science, oh, everybody should be in computer science. Everybody should be doing coding. Guess what? AI is doing all that for us right now. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who studied a lot of coding in college saying, "Oh, why did I do this? Now I don't now, what am I going to do?" And even if the job is still there, like again, accounting, there's still a need for accountants, but the job is very different than it was like certainly when I studied it, but it's changed even from 5, 10 years ago because of technology. So I think uh, that's why I'm always like, I'm not going to tell you not to pursue accounting or computer science or medical biology, things like that. Definitely. But pay attention to all the other things around you. Make sure that you're taking courses in areas that, maybe you think they don't even interest you, but they challenge you, that they open your mind to thinking about things in different ways. So that's where I think you got to seek the balance. And you have worked probably with even more parents than I have, and I think the parents and students both need this idea of, yeah, it's okay to have a goal of being a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or whatever it is, but also study other things for the benefit of being able to open your mind and to be flexible when it's needed, because it will be needed. We all know that today.
Yeah. Yeah, AI is changing the world faster than ever, and as you said, there is not a very, don't go behind a very well-defined path. When you start to explore what you have to study at college, look at, of course, there is some majors that you want to do that, so follow that path, but then don't just completely stick to it. Just diversify your experience. Probably learn a little bit of music, learn a bit of economics, or whatever it is that sometimes challenges you. Yeah.
For sure.
We are almost coming towards the end of the conversation, Professor Hanno. And for the parents who are listening to this conversation, what is the one mistake you see families make when they are guiding students towards college and careers?
Yes. So again, you probably see this question more than I do, but or this comment or desire. But I certainly have worked with a lot of families that were more focused on what I would say prestige than fit. You know, people, young people and their families have this goal of like, I want to get into in the US, one of the Ivy Leagues. I want to get into Harvard. I want to get into Yale. I want to get into Columbia. And that's an admirable goal. And those are great institutions. But the bigger question is that a right fit for you? And I know, listen, I mean, I went to a relatively high prestige institution, University of Notre Dame. Uh, but I don't think I did it for the prestige. I didn't realize it at the time, quite honestly. I did it for the fit. And I think that's what parents in particular need to help their students, their kids understand is that there's a right place for everybody, and it may not be Harvard, it may not be Yale, uh, and that some of the non-prestige, the names that people don't recognize, some of those non-prestige schools may actually do more to help you do all the things that we've been talking about here, to actually get into leadership positions, to, experience things that you wouldn't have the opportunity to experience otherwise, to, like the small school environment is, there's like no better way to actually be able to have more conversations than at a large university like some of the ones that we've mentioned. And the difficulty is for prestige, you can look up on a list and you can say, oh, that's the number one, that's the number two, the number three. For fit, unfortunately, nobody hands you a list and says, oh, here's the top three schools for your fit. So you have to experiment. You have to go see it. You have to talk to people that have been there and hear what they've done. I think your next genius students over the years have been such great examples of that. Um, when I look at what the students who came to Wheaton College have done, for example, they've done, I think, more than what they could have done if they went to Harvard because they came to a smaller institution where they actually could get so deeply immersed in everything and really take the opportunity to get to know people. I mean, I'm a college president. I can rattle off not all of the next genius scholars that came, but I can rattle off the names of many of them. Gianna, Rachel, Anushka, those are people that came to Wheaton College, took advantage, did what we've been talking about, took advantage of every experience they could, and they've now gone off as adults, as post-college, to have amazing careers, having huge impacts. That I would argue that if they'd gone to Harvard or one of those big schools, they would have just been another cog in the wheel. They would have had, success, I'm sure of that, but they're doing amazing things because they found the right fit for them. So that's, what I would say to parents, especially, because a lot of the pressure comes from parents. I know that, that. It's like, oh, you got to get into the best school. Oh, you got to get into the school that feels right for you. And the other thing I say about, colleges and universities, and I've literally worked with hundreds of them around the world now, if they're still around, they're good. They wouldn't be there if they weren't good. People have been able to achieve things because of what they've done for other people. So, an institution may not be the number one in the world, but they were number one for a lot of people where that fit helped them to go off and do some amazing things. So think fit, not prestige.
Fantastic. I think that's a great way to sort of come to an end of this conversation. Is think fit, look beyond rankings, look beyond prestige, and there is that right college for you that you should try to find, and you and only you can find that. That's fit is very personal, and it's not there on that list. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Quickly, I would just add, when you think about fit, you think about some of those students I mentioned, is in today's world, especially if you want to go into like medical or legal or some of the professions, you have to go get a second degree or sometimes a third degree.
Yeah.
And the best way to leverage getting into the very best second or third degree is to have an incredible experience in your first degree. So take Guyana, for example, who's a next genius student who, had an amazing experience at Wheaton College. And now, she leveraged that into a great job and she's now off at Harvard. So, I would argue that she wouldn't have had that opportunity if she didn't have the right fit to start with, and that your second degree, your third degree is maybe where you want to link prestige. Most prestige comes from what people do at the graduate level, not so much at the undergraduate level.
Yeah.
So find the right fit for your first degree, then go after prestige in your second
Yes,
degree.
yes, and that is coming from a professor who has seen multiple institutions at multiple grade levels. So, I mean, that I know. Uh, I would love to learn a little more about your course of leading organizations, leading people and organizations at Fordham at the Gabelli School of Business. Can you tell us what that is all about?
Sure. So, as a business school, we have all the traditional disciplines of accounting and finance and marketing, but my area, the leading people and organizations area, is another way of thinking about management in general. So, if a lot of institutions would just call it the management department, and it's not just a fancy name; it actually is the way that the Gabelli School lives business. It lives it as a way of focusing on leading people and organizations. And the Gabelli School in particular has a focus on humanistic management, doing it in a way that focuses on developing the whole person, as opposed to just being driven by achieving, business goals. And it's also about making a difference in the world. So we have a heavy focus on ESG, on environmental things, on societal impact. The title management just doesn't do it. We truly are about leading people and organizations and doing it in a humanistic way and doing it in a way that has a positive impact on the world.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Professor Hanno. It was such a pleasure to hear you today and to hear your insights about leadership and about how a 17-year-old should approach this. Before we close, any closing thoughts or anything that we could not cover or anything?
The only thing I would add is experience life. You know, choosing a college is the start of, it's a significant transition for all of us, but it's not the only transition. It's just the first step towards putting yourself in a position to be able to be an experiential learner your whole life.
Yeah.
So, really think of it as that way. It's the first step of many down a path of becoming a leader, becoming somebody that knows how to really focus on improving themselves, helping others around them, and having an impact on that community that you're part of.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Hanno. It's such a pleasure having you with us today. Thank you for your time and for sharing your insights and wisdom with all of us.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity and a huge thank you to you because I think the work that you and Next Genius is doing, Wheaton was one of the first schools that connected with you because we saw what an impact you could have. And so I just applaud you and your whole team for the positive impact you're having on so many young people. And I know you share this idea that, it's not always about prestige and it's also about the experience. I just think we're on the same wavelength, number one. So I'm biased, but the work you've done and continue to do and the impact I've seen Next Genius have on the lives of so many students, if there was a Nobel Prize for that kind of impact, you would get it. So,
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much, Professor. And